From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Napzok.
I'm Jen Landa.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And we're here for some Star Wars questions. We've been doing these episodes live lately. We're just doing a little switch around this week, see what kind of feels good in our soul. Is news better live? Is questions better with a brandy and a cigar in a nice quiet lounge by ourselves? I don't know. I have no cigar nor brandy. We got a question we're going to get to today. As always, I want to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by our merch shop on Fourth Wall. Check out our merch store, pick up a t-shirt, help support the show and represent ForceCenter out in the galaxy. Other things available there as well. More on the way. Head over to, see if my tongue can do this early in the morning, ForceCenter-shop.fourthwall.com. There you go, ForceCenter-shop.fourthwall.com. Or if you're watching on YouTube, thanks, by the way. Hey, maybe give us a like, a comment, subscribe, all those things. But also the link to Fourth Wall is down below in the description. That's one part of our pre-show promo. Joseph, we also have some asks going on.
That is right. We are still trying to build up our YouTube numbers. We have a goal of getting to 10,500 subscribers. Ken, are we close to that number? You just checked, right?
I did just check. We actually gained some subs this weekend. We're at 10,200 plus.
Hey,
comes and goes, but
plus.
Yeah, it's a slow growth, but we'll take it and we like it.
Yes.
We appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Plus is one of the highest numbers, so we're halfway there. So 10,500. When we reach that, we're going to release an old episode of Star Wars Ranked, a classic episode that was done with audio, but we're going to add exciting new visuals. So join us on YouTube and help make that happen.
Make it happen, indeed. We just realized
all the way home.
Dorks are kidding. This is different for me. I'm like, I don't know what is happening.
I just realized, we slightly switched up. It's not that we switch anything dramatically, but normally at this time we're recording Star Wars news and we do life adventures. But I'm like, well, we're going to be doing that live today, so we can catch up then. Now we can just go right to the question. But we didn't talk about that. All these thoughts just exploded in my head at once. So Joseph, save us, take us forward.
Yes, let's just go right to the main dish of the episode. We're fine. We ask people for questions, specifically our Patreon users. On our Patreon page, we've got a post there. If you're a patron, you can go and ask a question. We always ask people to share a little bit of why they're asking the question. So these questions turn into like a great mix of not just a question, a thought starter about Star Wars, but also people sharing what something meant to them and the why of it and all that. We've got a great example of that today. We have a question / beautiful little Star Wars essay from Antonio Mendiola, and then we will discuss it in depth. Here's what Antonio has to say. He says, hello again, ForceCenter friends. For this question, I wanted to focus on Anakin in the Kenobi series. Specifically, your feelings when you saw Hayden Christensen on screen again at the beginning of Part 5. We had known since the announcement in 2020 that Hayden would be reprising his role as Vader. We didn't know for sure if we'd see him as Anakin again. I hope he would, but it wasn't a guarantee. When the opening scene of Part 5 started, I actually thought we were looking at the skyline of Alderaan. It wasn't until we panned to the back of Hayden's body that I realized we were on Coruscant, and I could not believe what I was seeing. When Anakin turned around, it was like 5-year-old me knocked on my bedroom door and gave me a hug. I'm a prequel child, says Antonio. So along with the original trilogy, the prequels and especially Hayden were a huge part of my childhood, and my childhood was back on screen. My best friend had described seeing Hayden as seeing an old friend again. And then we got to see Hayden and Ewan clash blades again. Could Hayden's first return to Star Wars as Anakin be any better? The answer is no. I know people think that he might have purposely changed his voice a little bit, along with him just being older, to sound a little bit like Matt Lanter, but I don't hear it. I hear Hayden, which is the voice I prefer for Anakin. The cadence was there, and it made me happy. And in the same episode, we saw one of the darkest things in Star Wars. We saw Anakin actually slaughtering the younglings, which everyone joked about in 2005, but actually seeing him do it, nobody joked about it in 2022. And then, of course, his performance in Part 6 was absolutely phenomenal. So, my question, what was your initial reaction to seeing Hayden again in Part 5? Were you expecting flashbacks with Hayden? Did you expect the flashback to be more Clone Wars era rather than before Attack of the Clones? Did you pay specific attention to the lightsaber hilts to make sure they were correct? Or was that just me? Thank you for everything, and may the Force be with you all. This is great memories, great walking us through your emotional experience seeing Hayden return in part 5 of Kenobi. So we will answer Antonio's question directly, but we're also just going to use this as a jumping off point to discuss a little bit of this era we're in now, which is the resurgence, not only of Anakin, but the resurgence of Hayden on screen as Anakin. So, Ken, I want to start with you. Did you have a similar experience to Antonio where you were not sure if that was Alderaan, Coruscant, camera pulls back, the reveal happens? Were you surprised? Were you delighted? Where were you at?
It was a great moment, and I think I did have a little bit of surprise. I think I didn't know if it was Alderaan, but you had that kind of like, what are we? Oh, that was kind of the reaction. And in the house at my time, my former fiance, prequel kid, had that same kind of reaction Antonio's talking about of like, oh, and it's not even fair to call it like nostalgia, which is a dirty word thrown around a lot, but it is just this like, oh, you stop everything. We're going back to something really important to me and my life's journey. And she felt that, and I felt that in my way of being a bit of an older prequel kid, we'll say. But I was completely surprised. Completely surprised in the sense of, yeah, Hayden's back and Vader. And I imagine we might see his grizzled face and might see the scars, but to actually go back, and we can talk about the de-aging, and I actually no problem with it. It is just kind of part of the game. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's bad. I thought this one was fine. I thought this worked for me because I immediately bought into it, and I was happy to be back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As far as the de-aging too, I like the way it's presented. It isn't like just a flashback. It is almost this shared memory between Kenobi and Vader, like a memory they're both focusing on that summarizes a little bit of their relationship and the conflict they're having in the present moment of this episode. So you can even think like, maybe that's how Anakin sees himself. I was never that young and pure. There's always something a little off. Anyway, slightly joking about the de-aging, but also appreciating the nature of what this flashback is. Jennifer, how did you feel about the reveal? Were you similar to Antonio or a different experience?
I love Antonio's description of a knock on the bedroom door and getting a hug from someone from your childhood. I actually had a similar reaction, not related to Star Wars, but to Strawberry Shortcake, where I came across an old commercial or of the intro, I think it was. And I cannot describe, Antonio, you perfectly described it. It is such a warm, fuzzy feeling that I have not felt in such a long time, where my childhood was coming back. And it's like, oh, I've missed you, old friend. Let alone to get to see Strawberry Shortcake with Obi-Wan Kenobi. That would have been the icing on the cake for me. So I know that feeling, and I love that feeling, and I'm so happy that there are Star Wars kids who are feeling that way, seeing their prequel heroes back on screen. And when I really had no expectations for Hayden. I thought it was kind of, I don't want to say a PR stunt, but I assumed it was going to be a quick cameo, or like you're saying, Ken, like the grizzled face, a little shot of it. I had no idea we would get full on scenes, fantastic performances, and fight choreography. Like it exceeded my expectations in the best way, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that. I think there had been like one kind of slip from Ewan McGregor in the press tour where he said something about like, "Hey, we're sitting across from each other, and we were just back, like it was just like the 2000s again." It's like I don't think we're getting just grizzled Vader under the mask. So I thought like, oh, I thought we would get something. But I really thought it would be sort of like a more standard flashback. And like, yeah, this is a flashback, but it's such a framing device. And it's such, like I said, this scene, this moment between them that captures so much about their relationship and their conflict in the present moment and all their conflicts of what's driving both of them. So I wasn't surprised to see Hayden back as young Anakin, but I was surprised at how in depth it was and how important it was to that episode. That it wasn't just like 1 30-second. Like, remember when we were running around, this planet, this Christophsis. So I really liked that it was a longer scene. I really like that it was an in-depth scene. And I really like what Antonio is describing, where you see that skyline and it looks so beautiful and clean and pretty. And you're like, are we back on Alderaan? And I feel like it's almost on purpose of like, this is maybe one of the last more pure memories they both have before everything really starts going to hell with the Clone Wars coming along. And yeah, when it kind of their last moments is a truly student and teacher before they sort of become brothers as Anakin is elevated to Jedi Knight status and all that. So I thought it was just so elegantly done and giving Hayden so much to do. And that's the part that really surprised me, that it was a whole scene for him to sink his teeth into, not just like a flash of him. Does that make sense to you, Ken?
Yeah, absolutely. We keep saying, and this includes the Ahsoka series too, but like some of Hayden's best performances are in this modern age, which, I mean, that's crazy to think, right? That we just didn't think he'd get that chance. I don't think he thought he would get that chance. He went off to go raise some llamas on a farm or something. Like, this is kind of where I got to do. I got to do it. And it, yeah, I mean it. It's some of the best stuff of him as Anakin.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't feel hugged by my childhood self, but I did feel hugged by about my 27-year-old self, who really loved Ewan McGregor in Attack of the Clones in 2002. I was like, I never thought I'd be happy to see that mullet again. But man, I rewatched that scene when this question came in from Antonio, and they're both knocking it out of the park. There's just like so much just like kind of love and play in Ewan's eyes as Kenobi when they begin their little morning spar. And, you know, I know it's lightsabers and cool and all that, but there's also just that vibe of like, we get together and we have yogurt and we do yoga. This is our morning routine before everything goes to hell. And they both play that so well. Yeah. So this scene that Antonio is highlighting in part 5 of Kenobi is so much about the relationship between Kenobi and Anakin. And I wanted to check in with you both. We all grew up with the original trilogy, and we had an understanding of what that Kenobi and Anakin relationship was from the way Kenobi and Vader described it. You know, he was a good friend who betrayed Kenobi. In all this modern storytelling that we're getting, how do you feel about that relationship, Ken, between Kenobi and Anakin? Does it match to you now what you imagined when you were a kid? Has it evolved into something else? How do you feel about their relationship?
I do think it over time has matched it. I don't know if it did initially, only because we just didn't have it. It was a small sample size, right? We filled in a lot of the blanks. And then Phantom Menace comes along, a film I enjoy so much that I will scream at people in bars over it, as I've said many times. It changed the game a little bit for me, right? Ewan plays Obi-Wan correctly. It's just like, who the hell is this little squirt we're bringing along? Like, I don't like this. And all right, I guess, all right, I'll do it. I don't want to train him, but I will. Like, that was not what I expected, right? But it's also just the beginning. And I think even the Clone Wars series builds on it in a fantastic way. James Arnold Taylor, Matt Lanner, kind of fun, and the groove there with those characters. But I think some of these moments, I think that this episode really kind of connected back to those thoughts that we all had maybe in 1983. You know, just on a spice freighter, navigating around the galaxy, being pals. And you could feel it. And I think it is because they felt it too as actors, right? You're always acting, you're always putting together, but the joy, I think, was palpable. And that brotherly connection was present, and it did kind of help fill it out a little bit more for me.
Yeah. Jennifer, how do you feel about the relationship between Kenobi and Anakin, and how it's matching these days your imagination as a youngster?
I loved it, and I thought that it was, like you're saying, Ken, the brotherly relationship that Obi-Wan references in Revenge of the Sith. I always felt like he was so hard on him in the movies in particular, and it bothered me. I was like, well, I could understand why Anakin got so angry and frustrated. Maybe a little bit too extreme, but Obi-Wan was just really tough, a lot of tough love. But even in just that opening sequence from episode 5 of Kenobi, I felt a love. I felt chemistry between the actors, and I think that their real world relationship really helped fill in and make that relationship on screen even more authentic and a little bit softer, I think, than how I had viewed the prequel relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always been fascinated by this because it's such. I had such an imagination of what that relationship was with Alec Guinness's Wistful, and we were, and he was a good friend, and Obi-Wan once thought as you did, and just really thinking about these great pals, and then I really appreciate in the prequels the arc of it of Obi-Wan being like, yeah, who is this kid? I'm ready to graduate, but I'm being pushed out of this nest for this kid who breaks all the rules. And then in Attack the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, I think it really is just, I think Lucas did do a good job of painting on a postage stamp of like, there's so much going on in these movies, and I need to show all of the steps along the way where Anakin makes mistakes and falls. But I got to try as much as possible to show charming Anakin and show the bond between Ewan and Obi-Wan and Anakin. And I think there's all sorts of those moments in the prequels. It's just those spiky moments where Anakin, loses it and Obi-Wan yells at him, almost like in real life. Like, if you have a wonderful day with your family and then there's kind of a fight at the picnic, you mostly think about the fight, right? Because everything else was just kind of, that was nice. That was lovely. It bubbled along. It was perfect. I wish that fight hadn't happened. And you watch Attack the Clones like, hey, Anakin is really going in hard for Padme, and Obi-Wan is yelling at him all the time. And then you rewatch the movie, and like, those are spikes, and they're definitely there. But there's lots of time where it is the camaraderie in that. So I think it is in the films, but not as much as I always wanted. And then we get so much of it in the Clone Wars because we have more room for it. And I think this scene in Kenobi Part 5 is such a great example of a scene that there wasn't quite room or pacing for in the prequel films. It's a day in the life. It's their morning spar, and it starts friendly. There's a spike of danger from Anakin being too aggressive, and it isn't some big ominous chord of like, and and he's gonna fall to the dark side. It's just sort of like Kenobi's like, hey, great job. You'll get it, buddy. Remember not to be so aggressive. Pat on the back. It starts nice. There's a spike of danger, and then it ends nice. And it's the kind of scene that I think you have room for in a TV show. And I think it really helped to me add to the collection of what we have in the films and the Clone Wars to build their brotherhood.
It does sync up nicely with the opening of Revenge of the Sith. A great sequence. A lot of people love Battle of Coruscant. Great music. But I think they're successful at that. And you're right. I think the spike's just a great way to look at it. It can be done bad. It can be done good. It's like any rom-com. These characters need to fall in love within 12 minutes or else we don't have a movie. So that's not real. Of course it's not real. But you could do it effectively. And I think in some of those scenes in Revenge of the Sith, I did feel that. But I agree with you. Now that we have a little more time, it's the benefit of what we're doing now with Star Wars rolling on.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer, kind of a side question. I think there's such an interesting dance in the Kenobi Anakin relationship of Anakin wanting a parental figure and Obi-Wan being a little young for that and wanting a little bit more of a brother figure and being a little bit more comfortable with that. In scenes like the one from Kenobi, how do you feel about that balance between, are they a parent-child relationship? Are they a close sibling relationship? What do you think?
I'd see more of the sibling relationship, the older brother, younger brother dynamic. But at some point, so I've heard from my husband, the younger brother suddenly has a growth spurt and is now almost as tall as the older brother and now can hold their own in basketball. And maybe they even get a couple dunks over their brother. And suddenly the older brother is like, oh, I can't.
Great way to look at it.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I got that dynamic in these scenes. And obviously, part of it is because Hayden Christensen looks older. I thought the de-aging was fantastic. We can get into that later. But it's just this funny dynamic that I felt within this tension of just like, oh yeah, I'm not your kid brother anymore. I can hold my own.
I think that's extremely accurate, and it's really funny to imagine some of Anakin's dialogue reworked to fit that metaphor. Like, it's all Obi-Wan's fault. He won't let me dunk on him.
Mom!
I dunk on you because I'm teaching you baseball or basketball, but when you dunk on me, you're too aggressive, young one. Like,
you were once the point guard, but now I am the point guard.
A Jedi's goal is to defend the basket, not dunk on their brothers. That's great. That's very let's talk about the de-aging. I think for me it's like it's fine. I don't it's not awful. I think I feel it a little bit in this scene because the scene is so much about his youth. He's still younger and obviously he's already slaughtered the Tusken Raiders, or no he hasn't yet. He's going to be doing that later. Very soon. So pre-slaughter. So he's doing okay.
Pre-slaughter.
Is that a pre-slaughter face? That's what I'm asking. I think that's it for me. But Jennifer, what are your thoughts on the de-aging? You say you think it's fantastic.
I thought it was great. I thought that it looked. There were times where I was like, "Wait, is that his real face?" Like, there were a couple moments. I think when the blade is ignited and you get that wash of blue on his face, that's where I was like, "Oh, there's the filter." There's a Photoshop app, right? The Kardashian filter. It was nice though. It was really nice because I mean, and I was really looking. I'm all about the skin and stuff like that, and he's taking good care of himself. And maybe he's had some like peels and whatnot, but I could see the textures in his face and like his pores and a little bit of some wrinkles. And I was like, oh, that's good. That's good. Whoever did that, I want to hire them. And I don't know if I don't know if they did that for Ewan too. It didn't look like it. I mean, I don't even. They could have maybe even achieved a little bit with the lighting. Quite frankly, I used to work with a TV host who, boy, she had this really incredible setup of these cubes, and we would laugh because like on her she'd be glowing, and on her guests, they'd have more natural lighting.
Not so much.
Yeah. So it is possible to achieve with lighting, but I just thought overall the fact that it didn't take me out, that to me is a success. I could go on and on about this because I'm really into skincare.
So
Let's talk off air because I have a very small role in my film, and the first shot of me is like, that was not kind lighting to myself. That was not kind lighting at all. I needed a cube. Ken, do you have any other de-aging thoughts?
Yeah, I exfoliate every morning with an apricot scrub. I just went down one of those rabbit holes of actors back in the day and their actual age. And there was a shot of Abe Vigoda at 46, and I refuse to accept that. That is not true.
What?
At 40, he was 46. There was a picture of Walter Matthau at 44 that I was like, that's a 70-year-old. That's a 70-year-old. What are we doing here? So you and Paul Rudd, we're in an era of glorious skin and aging, I guess. I don't know.
Facelifts.
Facelifts, yeah.
Yeah,
don't have that.
Facelifts, yeah.
Don't have that. I'm somewhere, and to be clear, Joseph, you're not negative on the scene. I agree with what you're saying. Like there was a reality to it once you kind of figure out what's going on. We're like, well, Hayden's in his late 40s. We know, blah blah blah. But I thought it was pretty good overall. I think I was able to be pulled in by it. I'm neither here to condemn nor condone the use of de-aging. It's just kind of where we are. I think there's definitely some dangers out there in the world we got to worry about. And there's just kind of some realities. In Dial of Destiny, I thought Harrison Ford that de-aging was fantastic. It takes me away every time. And I know people complain about his voice. It's an 80-year-old voice. Yeah, I get that too. But I'd rather have that than some hyper, realized version of his voice. So I thought it was pretty effective in this scene. I thought it was also very effective in the Ahsoka series, but I know we're focusing on Kenobi here.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big picture is, does it take you out of the scene? Do you feel it emotionally? And for me, like, no, it didn't. It was like, yep, that's a reality. Just like when I, watch an old movie and there's a little line around the green screen, like, I don't care. I'm watching. I'm still invested, and I was totally invested in the emotion of this scene. So I guess if that is the question on de-aging, then it was a big success for me.
I mean, we all grew up watching Lando and Han sitting in front of a cardboard cutout of the Millennium Falcon, basically. It was a great matte painting, but it was like
a Sears family portrait backdrop. I'm afraid of losing this painting of my ship. Yep, and you accept. Anyway, so Antonio, in his question, really, I think it's a tribute to how much prequel era kids who grew up with the prequels have such a special bond with Anakin, the character, and Hayden Christensen as Anakin. Um, Ken, how does that impact your bond with Anakin and Hayden, getting to interact and hear from people like Antonio? I think maybe our generation, we didn't. There's lots of reasons that we might not have fully accepted Hayden or Anakin, but we were also entirely seeing him through the lens as he's Vader, and this is just kind of the before. And I think a kid growing up with the prequels, even if they've seen the original trilogy, doesn't quite have that hurry up and be Vader baggage that some people our age did. So I'm curious about how you've processed your baggage of what you expected and wanted out of Anakin, and how that kind of aligns with the understanding that we get to have from people who younger than ourselves.
I love how you phrase that, of just kind of hurry up and be bad, man. Like, I know what happens. And we are going to deal with things a little differently. I think what you're talking about, I love discussing this. This is maybe one of my personal growth points as a fan. Now, I think Hayden's gotten better as a performer. I think he's got a better handle on the role. And it's one of the reasons it's so great to have him come back. I sometimes, occasionally, I don't know if you do it as a performer, Joseph. It's like I've gone back to old stand-up bits, like 15 to 20-year-old bits. I'm like, oh God, I understand this a lot better. Like I'm delivering this in a way I couldn't back then. And I think that's some of what's going on in terms of the generational exchange or growth, I should say. Our growth, they've always been there. This is one of the ForceCenter's big mantras, right? Is representing or understanding that there's a lot of different entry points, and just kind of being okay with representing those kind of fans here on our show, even though we're old trilogy fans. This is I was one of the leaders of the, Hayden didn't nail that line kind of movements back in the day. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've publicly apologized to my old colleague Roxy Stryer and Sarah Stratton. I brought them on Jedi Alliance and they defended Hayden and I mocked them, And it's not fair to Hayden, but it's also not fair to them. That's my big point, right? When I get a little grumpy at Generation X and some people in the comments go, not me, well, great. Then join me in the fight against those from our generation who want to take Star Wars away from the generations that came after them. I mocked them to their faces, Roxy and Sarah, but oh, come on, how could you even like this? And to see him, Hayden, come back on stage at Celebration 2022 brought tears to my eyes, because it was also bringing tears to their eyes, because that's why we're here as Star Wars fans. It meant so much. And I'm there. I'm there for it. I'm just there for the Hayden-assance and the Anakin-assance.
Jen, how do you feel about your own journey and getting fresh perspective from the people who grew up with Hayden as Anakin?
Yeah, I was a hater. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, I had so many negative things. It's a good thing I wasn't hanging out at the bar. I'd get in a lot of fights.
But I would have joined you back then. Would have been like, nah, Jenny Landa from the block is right.
Yeah, it took me a long, long time. And even now, like when there's certain scenes where I'm like, it's a little stilted. Okay, so what, right? Yeah. I've grown a lot, and it doesn't take away from how much of an impact the character had on so many fans, right? But I will say, his performance in Kenobi is exceptional, and Ahsoka. He's grown as a man. He's grown as a performer. And and this is going to sound weird, but there is a relaxation that he is bringing to the character now that he did not have when he did the prequels. And it's just from age, and like he feels comfortable with the character. He has lived with his character for decades now. There is an ease that he is bringing, and that I think it's like, it really blew me away, because I was kind of prepared to be like, let's see his performance. I'm sure it'll be fine. No, he's a great actor. He is selling this. This is not easy. He has to compete with this history of this character, and he did it in spades. And so I eat crow because I was totally wrong. And
yeah, shout out to all the Jumpers and Shattered Glass fans who are like, yeah, we told you.
Jumper. That's right.
I have still seen neither of those films, which I should do. Yeah. I was not a hater. I would have nodded politely at the bar when you were both hating on the Anakin Hayden performance, and I probably would have piped up to be like, I think he did a pretty good job. I think I had the blinders of what did I expect versus what was there.
Right.
And I don't think I engaged with the performance that Hayden gave in the performance that Lucas asked for. For the infamous Lucas doesn't super like talking to actors. Hayden cracked that, and the two of them, to hear Hayden talk about it, seem to talk about these choices a lot. And I think when I was young, and the prequels were coming out, I wanted Anakin to be more like Luke. I wanted him to be just like a little bit more relaxed and really charming, so that there was really a lot for him to fall from. And I think over the years, what I've come to appreciate is um, he's not the same character. He went through a much more traumatic childhood, and I think all that intensity that Hayden plays him with, there's all sorts of charm in the little jokes and the asides and the style which he uses, the blade in the swings, and just like that brooding intensity. Like maybe it comes off as a heightened melodrama, but that was the choice of how to present the scenes. And I think Hayden is an actor. I got no beef with what his performance these days. The conflicts I had with it at the time were it butting up with what I imagined in my head that Anakin should be. And you get so much more out of things when you engage with what you're presented with. And for me, that's what it's like. It's so wonderful to hear from people like Antonio, who had no preconceived baggage of how Anakin should be. And he's this charming, wounded, intense character who is cocky and full of himself, but also deeply wounded and really needs and wants love. But if he doesn't get it, he kind of pushes back in a flash. And like, now that I kind of try to just let myself see the character, I can see how relatable that would be when you are young. And when you are feeling all those things too, of like, my mentor does not let me be my full self. Look how good and talented I am. Why don't people like me? And like, please like me. No, all right, you don't? Okay, all right then. I felt all those things as a young person, maybe even still today. So I've really come to appreciate it and agree with you both that I think his years of experience have made him really zero in on what is the core of this character and get even better and better. That performance in Ahsoka, is that what this is about? The casualness of like, oh, is that what you're upset about? The 19 years of murder and betrayal? It has all the intensity and ominous vibes that he played as young Hayden, or as young Anakin, but with so much more weight and skill.
You're making me think of 2015 conversations when Adam Driver as Kylo Ren has that liar moment, right?
Mhm.
That kind of screaming, and there was such positive talk around that. Not that Hayden truly needed something else to justify his work, but it served like that. I remember having those conversations on and off air of just like, oh yeah, he's connecting to, it's not just, it's family and it's blood, and that's what these whiny Skywalker solo boys do. It's part of that, but like it suddenly made me even go back and look at some of the things in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith differently, just from that moment.
Yeah.
Yes. I think, and for me, I remember I did love his performance in Revenge of the Sith. I really had a problem with Attack of the Clones, but having seen it now, what you're talking about, Ken, I think is right. Like, there is an awkwardness and a self-doubt that is very realistic. If you talk to any teenage kid or preteen, they're weird, they're dorky, they're awkward, they're not sure of themselves, right? They don't know how to they don't have game with a person that they're interested in, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
that is why I think Lucas cast him for the same reason that he cast Jake Lloyd, is that these were kids. They brought that authenticity. They were not slick. They were not kid actors in this sense of like, they're going to be more polished, right?
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
had rougher edges, but that I think is actually an advantage. And looking back now and watching those films, I see that. And I think
Mhm.
Adam Driver Adam Driver kind of had that. Certainly in the Force, there was like this like
Mm.
roughness that corresponds with his lightsaber. Funny enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's just like if you open yourself to it, there are lots and lots of layers to Hayden's performance. Yeah, and I always say like the Milady moments are unfortunate, but that's cultural context. Like,
Yeah.
that's the
Right.
when Padme says, "Don't look at me like that," it makes me uncomfortable. Sorry, Milady. It's like, okay, that's an awkward guy who's like, oh my God, the fact that me looking at her makes her uncomfortable means that maybe there is something here, but yeah, it's cultural context that makes it feel like it's 2014 and he should have a men's rights activist hat because of using the word milady. But that isn't Hayden. It's not the movie. It's cultural context applied after the fact to me.
I really agree with you. We are correctly looking at some of those things, and there's great cover. Padme, why did you maybe not the right guy? Like, there's a lot of those conversations, both in good humor and with insightfulness that I think we know they're out there. But going back to 2002, I remember seeing that scene in the sand scene, and just going, oh, that's not how we do it. Okay, all right, I'll take a note on that. It doesn't. Okay, that's bad. that's what awkward. That's what awkward Ken did. Like I just thought that's what you did.
Yeah, I mean, I get people making the sand joke, and even people who love Hayden make the sand jokes. It is an awkward transition, but it is entirely performed and edited that way. I think another preconceived notion that I brought into it, and I think other people our generation did, of like, oh, this is going to be the Han Leia romance of this trilogy, and the posters made it look like Han Leia. But these characters aren't Han and Leia. But like the way that sand scene is edited, when he starts very gently touching her back, he's got that weird little gulp. Like that's an acting choice. That's a directing choice. That's an editing choice.
Yeah.
And you can say, I don't like them. It should have been more smooth. But in terms of what are the artists presenting to us? The artists are presenting in awkward, damaged young man who is trying to figure out this confused stew of emotions of needing this person, but not knowing how to express it, while having nightmares about his mother dying, while being on his first mission to prove that he's a successful Jedi and can stand up for himself. And he's got Obi-Wan, sitting on his shoulder in his imagination going, don't touch her back that way. Like, this kid's got a lot going on, and we've been shown it. And that scene isn't meant to feel the way it does. You can not like it, but I think it's executed the way it's intended is the way I feel these days.
I agree. You're also both take me back to 2002. Ken did a lot of those nervous gulps, and wasn't until later that it became more Han Solo and the Falcon. I don't have time for anything else. Like, just takes time. Calm down, boys. Calm down.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Jennifer, any insights from your perspective on awkward young romance?
What's funny is when you're in it, you don't realize how silly and awkward it is. You might know, like, come on, just ask me to the dance or whatever. Like, I know where this is headed. Just get it over with.
Yeah.
But I now
Anakin, come on.
now watching those things, which is why that kiss in a Skeleton Crew with a girl kissing Neil, to me, does not feel authentic. It doesn't feel like what a teenage girl would do in that moment, in my opinion. I don't know, but that's a conversation for another day.
That's right. We'll get those YouTube comments later. Right now, we're getting YouTube comments about this.
I'll tell you what teenage girls from my perspective, a 45-year-old man.
Anyway, speaking of 45-year-old men, the big picture for me wanting to have this conversation is just, I kind of feel like not only am I enjoying the Hayden as Anakin resurgence for the performance he's giving now, I feel like I kind of have permission to enjoy the character more than I ever have from his original performances in the prequels and just really be like, that's the character and that's what he was always meant to be. And it really helps for me to hear from people like Antonio, who always saw the character without any preconceived notions. Um, moving on to something that Antonio brought up that is important and unfortunate about the character of Anakin, which is the youngling slaughter. So Antonio mentions that people laughed at it in 2005 in his experience. Ken and I both went to screenings of Revenge of the Sith in 2025 where people awkwardly laughed in the theater as well. Other people in my screening, I think, were really uncomfortable at the people who were coping with this serious moment by laughing. But Antonio says people felt like they took it more seriously in 2022. In 2022, there was a warning that was put at the beginning of Kenobi because of how upsetting this scene and this reality was of somebody who's meant to be a protector attacking children. And then at the same time, very, very soon afterwards, Andor comes out and people discuss Kenobi as being that safe, easy show. So in our all of our discussions and processing as a culture of this important story point in Star Wars, there's all sorts of emotional reactions to it, from awkward laughing at it to maybe laughing at it because you think it wasn't told well, to needing a warning, to not being as serious as Andor. So Ken, at this point, how do you feel about this dark chapter of Anakin's story and all the different ways that people respond to it?
They're all valid, and I look at it, for me personally, it is myth, it is exaggerated. The character did do those things, but I also, when he repents on his deathbed and saves his son and everything, like, I'm there for it, because that is just the lesson. It doesn't mean that I think crime by crime in the real world, this would be something I'd be completely understanding of someone like Anakin. But I think it really kind of worked for me. But I also, I'm with you. I mean, I'm less trying to be less grumpy about it, but that whole like, all these series are kiddie stuff, and Andor's the only one that does it. It presents it in a different way, but Anakin stabbed a youngling right on screen in Kenobi. It's pretty serious. So, anyways, it all kind of works for me, and I'm there for the different processings.
Mm-hmm. How does it make you feel? How does it factor into your processing of the character? Like, Anakin is a troubled hero for most of the prequels in the Clone Wars. Obviously, he does things like the slaughter of the Tuskens. But there's large swaths where you can just be like, he's my guy, he's my hero, and then he falls to the dark side, and this is part of the falling to the dark side. How do you kind of cope with that? Do you look up to Anakin? Do you relate to Anakin? Do you feel like Qui-Gon screaming Anakin no? Are you emotionally disappointed when the horror happens?
I truly do take it as a lesson. I think we've even done some content here on this channel about you shouldn't look up to Vader. You should take from him the lessons, the most powerful monster in the room that can never get what he wants. So I look at even the Stores Bandim Revenge of the Sith moment, that blade coming out, which it was just cheered and laughter and everything in that 2025 screening I was in with Billy Business. I always take it as him destroying his past, or attempting to destroy his past, and wrestling with what he was, knowing that he is continuing to go down a path that he feels he can't turn from. Even something that Kylo deals with later on in a different way slightly. So it's part of the journey for me, is just going, on the paper, statistically, he's killing those kids. Because remember, in 2005, maybe Jen and I would have been, at the local bars here. We would have been at what's that one, that the royalty check bar that was going on there?
Which one?
Yeah, there was the bar. What was that called? There was a bar in Ventura. Like, if you could bring your residuals, you could bring your residuals checks, and they'd give you a free drink if there was like under $5. Yeah. Okay. We both weren't there, but
Oh,
I would have.
shoot. Oh, man.
Yeah. It's closed now. It's closed
Yeah,
now.
well.
But like that, I was one of the ones of like, oh, you have this great, cool character, and he's just killing kids. He's not even doing the Jedi killing, the cool stuff, and I've so far moved past from that and taken it as exactly what it is. This is a lesson. This is someone who gives up everything and will never get what he wants until he gives that up in the end, literally with Luke in the final moments in Return of the Jedi. But here he is, just slaying his past, and that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jennifer, how do you wrestle with your own reactions to Anakin's slaughter of the younglings and all the mixed reactions that we seem to hear about from other people?
It's very complicated. With the original trilogy, I think that a lot of people, felt like Vader could be not something that you look up to, but something perhaps that you identify. Maybe you're feeling a little emo. Maybe you're feeling really, angry at the world or something. So then you wear your Vader shirt or you wear your Vader hat, right? Or I have a backpack that says Vader on it. It is signifying that I'm complicated, right? I'm not all good. I'm a complicated person.
Swipe maybe. Yeah.
But with each, different sequence that we get from the Rogue One slaughter, right?
Mm.
Which was pretty brutal and yet weirdly thrilling,
Yeah.
to obviously
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith, which it didn't feel as graphic as perhaps the Kenobi sequence. And I'm not sure why. There's just, maybe it's because we just now are seeing so much more where it just feels, I literally have gotten rid of a lot of my Vader stuff, because
Hmm.
it's like, what am I co-signing? And the people that I see that are really like bringing out their Imperial merch right now during this time, it does kind of feel like they are trying to show that they are aligned with terrible things that are happening. And I don't,
Hmm.
I don't, as a parent and as just a person, it just doesn't feel good anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you both bring up really great stuff. I think once he becomes full Vader, our relationship with Vader going back to 1977 was, he's kind of a symbol of Star Wars, right? And
Right.
he,
Yeah.
especially at the time in 1977, when we just, met him, he's obviously, evil. He chokes people and tortures people, and it is cosigns blowing up planets. He's going to
Right.
shoot down, I was going to say his own son, but people don't know that at the time, but
Mm.
still, he's going to shoot down this happy-go-lucky kid.
Yeah.
He's trying hard to do the right thing. But there is a little bit of like, he's definitely mythic. He's definitely over the top. He's only slightly removed in 1977 from a panto villain in British pantomime. Was like, he's there for you to go, boo, the bad guy is here. And people kind of adopt him. And then as the storytelling goes on, he becomes a real person and becomes more complicated, and he becomes, so much more. And I have a Vader action figure right next to me. I'm probably not going to wear Vader paraphernalia out in the world myself, but I love Vader the same way I love, Michael Myers or Ghostface from Scream. Of like, he's a monster, and he's a safe way for us to play with the why of
Mm-hmm.
monsters. And then as we get to know Anakin, it's like, okay, this is all a story about humans and choices that they make. And I have so much empathy for the character of Anakin when we learn what he went through and how much he is looking for people to help him, and he only has so much luck with that. But then eventually he makes his own choices, and he makes the wrong choices. And the youngling slaughter is difficult. To me, it's just like it is awful, and it's supposed to be awful. And I think that's one of the things that makes the Kenobi show so good, is that it is uh, about what do mentors owe children. Kenobi feels he failed Anakin. Anakin failed the young Jedi that he was sworn to protect in that temple. Obi-Wan is afraid he's going to fail to protect Leia. The whole thing is about what is owed. we see the slaughter from Reva's perspective, so that we are very clear on what was how she was failed. So I think that Kenobi did a great job of like not making it just like a footnote, but really dealing with the ramifications of it, which I think is a good thing, since it is an important part of Anakin's journey and the Star Wars story to really deal with it and process it. And a lot of the characters are processing it. Reva and Kenobi are processing it, and Anakin is not capable of it. Yeah, and in the screening of Revenge of the Sith that I saw in 2025, I just felt like people were like having fun, and Star Wars is a weird thing where you're having fun, and then suddenly some of the most awful crap imaginable happens in this sort of mythic way. And some people, my perception was people couldn't deal with it. They were having fun, hooting and hollering, and they laughed out of a need to not feel their own fear or awkwardness or uncomfortableness, or they didn't want to shift gears to a solemn moment of how awful this is. And they covered it by laughing. I didn't get a sense that they were laughing because it was so poorly executed. I thought it was like nervous laughter. That's what I perceived in my theater. Yeah. Final thing, Ken, it's one of my favorite things that you say. I hadn't really ever picked up how much Source Bandim looks like young Anakin. And I do think that's the best mythic part of what happens in Revenge of the Sith, of Palpatine has twisted him, and he believes, I need to become more powerful in the dark side. I need to take out all these Jedi. I used to want to see Anakin taking out the older Jedi that he's angry at. Mm-hmm. But this is the more powerful thing of like, great, it's easy for you to cut down some Jedi who was an a-hole to you and made you feel abandoned and alone and othered. It's easier for you to let out your anger. But what I'm asking you to do is cut out hope, cut out empathy, cut out the perspective that you had when you were a child, cut out what your mother gave you. Cut that out, because it's the only way to become powerful enough to save Padme. And it's when you look at it that way, it's so haunting of what we can sometimes do to ourselves, of like, well, it's time to grow up, so I have to kill all the childish things, all the joyful things. When I was young and naive and thought maybe I could trust people, I need to kill all of that to be strong. Once you start looking at it from that framework, the story it has to tell us about our own kind of day-to-day life choices is pretty powerful.
Yeah, completely. And I think it's one of those situations where those other Jedi could represent critics or those around you who might not want to let you give into your worst instincts. And so Anakin's like, I could lose. They could actually defeat me, or I might actually be faced with the truth that I don't want to face right now, and I'd be forced to change. We all kind of can turn away from the good advice sometimes, or the challenges that might make you a little bit better. And so, you know what I'm going to do? I got this old creepy guy in a cowl telling me to go wipe out my past. That sounds like fun. I'm going to do that. That's not growth. That's easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that chapter of Anakin's life before we move on?
It's cool. No, but in all seriousness too, like I get it, and it's a bigger conversation that some YouTube essayist can get into, of just our fascination with the bad guys over the years. Come from that pro wrestling world. Always a lot more fun to play the bad guys. Always a lot more fun to come on out and be mean. It's unfortunately, it taps into something deep inside. So yeah, Darth Vader is a symbol of that in a lot of ways. I like how you phrase it, of that and other examples and pictures, especially in horror. The horror genre is how to dance with the monster in a safe way, and I think that's okay. I think the Rogue One hallway scene is amazing. It's awesome, and I've wanted to see that for such a long time. Is the feeling I had when that happened, of like Vader just being badass. But I think it's important to, especially nowadays with media literacy and all those things, all those buzzwords we love saying on the talk shows. I think it's important to pull back and see what's actually there from the artists involved.
Yeah. So if rumors are true and Kenobi might pop up in the Ahsoka series along with Anakin, what would you want to see, Ken, out of that relationship in Ahsoka?
I kind of want them, kind of build on what we've got already and what we saw in Kenobi with their relationship, and having them now with more age and wisdom and experience as actual human beings on our planet, and their actual relationship, bring that to the screen and explode it out in ways during the Clone War era, whether it's flashback, world between worlds, whatever it might be. That episode with Anakin and Ahsoka remains one of my favorite things, not just in the series, but recent Star Wars, of just like getting us as fans to go back to that time and analyze it all over again, and just getting to spend some time in it. And I hope there's some fun moments too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they have just such great charm
Yeah.
together, and to have them have the elbow room to have more of those Clone Wars era moments. If it's a literal Clone Wars flashback or more to shenanigans, I don't really care.
Yep.
But they do, in my opinion, like I said, Obi-Wan and Anakin have a ton of great moments in the prequel films.
Right.
But there was elbow room to have even more of that brotherly banter in the Clone Wars animated series. And it would be great to see Ewan and Hayden be given the opportunity to have even more of that, like they did in this scene that we've been talking about in part 5 of Kenobi. Jen, do you have any desires from possible rumored Kenobi Anakin in Ahsoka season 2?
That is really tough to answer. I feel like I don't even know where they would go from here. More fight sequences. That was really cool to see. I feel like it kind of answers the question, right? Like what more is there speculation? Are people saying that? Has anyone been seen on set?
There are rumors, various rumors, and Ewan has been saying a while back at conventions, people ask him things like, well, what would you like to do? And he's like, well, I've never worn that armor he's got in the Clone Wars. I think I'd look pretty nice in that. And then the audience goes, woo! So I think things like that have caused speculation.
Okay, that could be interesting with a young Ahsoka. Sure, that would be a fun dynamic to see on screen. I mean, is it necessary? I don't know, but it could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how it will progress. I mean, I'm sure that they would find a way to make it relevant to the story and something really impactful that happens, right? To that has an effect on Ahsoka now. Obviously, I'll leave that up to them.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it fades in episode 1 and it's Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan on Mortis, and Obi-Wan goes, "Oh no, here we go again," and then we just the sitcom on Mortis.
Yeah. As much as I'd love to just see a straight Clone Wars flashback, and we might in a kind of similar vein that we saw Anakin. I would love some Mortis shenanigans that get into that relationship of the three of them.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
All right, wrapping up here. Ken, any other hopes for future Anakin storytelling?
I think we're playing free baseball. We're in overtime. We didn't expect to be here, and we've gotten some great stuff in 2022 and 2023 with Kenobi and Ahsoka. So anything else is frosting on the cake. And I agree with Jen in some ways there. Just some more lightsaber clashing, some more pithy lines, some wry smiles, awkwardly touching Padme. All those things. Put it in there. Respectfully, Anakin. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Jen, for you, any other hopes for future Anakin storytelling?
Yeah, I love the I always love the behind the scenes. I think that he has fun. Hayden Christensen has fun. People get excited on set when they see him in the armor. I love seeing his behind the scenes of like the training that he goes through, the fight sequences, the brotherly touches that he has with Ewan McGregor. Like it's all good. It's just I live for the behind the scenes. Him delivering the national anthem at baseball games. Anything that is more Hayden, I appreciate it.
That's fantastic. More Hayden, indeed. Yeah, I'm really excited that for what might come in Ahsoka season 2, because I think that is getting to play this whole other Anakin as a Force spirit, to really get to play this sort of whole, complete version of the character is fantastic. And I don't need it anytime soon, but there's been a lot of really fantastic Vader storytelling in books and comics that I think handles the character really well, that highlights the trauma, that highlights how much, no matter how much this monster does, he can't quite get what he wants because he's not being honest with himself about what that would take. I don't think we need it right now, but we got plenty of time. Aiden could play grizzled Vader under the mask for years and years to come. So years from now, a Hayden as Vader movie or TV show, plenty of time with the helmet off, would be really, really fun.
And then we'll get those articles. Did you know that Hayden Christensen is as old as Sebastian Shaw was when he first played?
That's why his eyebrows are that big as they were in the original cut of Return of the Jedi. Well, that's it. Thank you, Antonio, for this great thought starter about Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. And thank you, as always, for sharing your perspective, which has made me appreciate the character even more.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you all for watching, hanging out with us. You want to connect with us after this? We're on social media at ForceCenter Pod, on TikTok at ForceCenter Show, Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. On Sundays, we rebroadcast Databank Brawl. Merch available at the aforementioned Fourth Wall or still at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Patreon.com/ForceCenter is where you can support us and get into that Discord and continue the conversation. You can follow me at Ken Napzok. My website is still down, so just search that name. You'll find me. I'm out there. Jen, I was going to say strawberry shortcake, diddle diddle dee, cute little pies for you and me, right? Is that the song?
That sounds kind of right.
Sounds kind of it, right?
Gosh. Wow, you're taking me back. You can
So
find me.
Now do a video on it.
Exactly. I have thoughts about strawberry shortcake and the Piper from Porcupine Peak or something like that. Anyways, you can find me on all the social media sites at Jennifer Landa talking about whatever. Retro stuff.
There you go. Sir?
Deedle deedle dee. Social media for me. You can find me on pretty much all the social media with the handle at Joseph Scrimshaw. And I'll plug other things later. That's it.
There you go. We'll see you. Thanks for watching, listening, and asking questions here on ForceCenter.